many Sundays you no doubt have heard me, and I presume David too, talk about how God's Spirit permeates all of creation. I've used the image that Richard Wagamese offers us in one of his books, where Creator God breathes divine life and energy into all of creation at the beginning of it all. The life of God permeates all that is. The life of God animates. And as we heard in the psalm, if you take away that breath, it dies. We are alive because we have been infused with life. God is life. God is love. God is energy. And so that energy is to be found not only in you, in me, but in all of creation around us. In the beauty of the trees, in the water that we are called to preserve and care for, in the forests that are now burning madly out in the west provinces and elsewhere. All to say that when we come to celebrate Pentecost, we need to understand that Pentecost is not the first time that God's Spirit has come upon the earth. God's Spirit already is. God's Spirit existed before, and all of creation was animated before Pentecost Day. What I want to suggest to us on this Pentecost Sunday is that we need to understand that being a Christian is not something that we are born into. One isn't born a Christian. Jewish people are born Jewish if they have Jewish mothers. It's simply a matter of passing on the bloodline. But for a Christian, it is not that way. Babies born to Christian parents are not Christians. We become Christian at baptism. We are Christed at baptism. And I think one of the challenges that we need to reflect upon when we say that is that being baptized and being then called a Christian is not the end of the story. Simply to be baptized and be called a Christian doesn't really make you one. There are a lot of people who have been baptized. There are a lot of people who carry around birth certificates. And there are a lot of people with birth certificates who do terrible things in our world. If we look at the disasters that are afflicting many people, the war that is being perpetrated against the Ukrainian people, for example, being perpetrated by people who were baptized. But does that make them Christian? It makes them people who carry baptismal certificates that says, yes, I am a Christian, but unless you live what you say you are, you really are not what you profess to be. We look to ourselves and see all kinds of Christian people oppressing immigrants, deporting them. And we don't have to look back too far to recognize that Christians oppressed and enslaved other people who also had baptismal certificates. So being baptized doesn't automatically make you what a Christian is supposed to be. And that's why some churches say to us that an infant baptism is not really baptism. Baptism is something that you need to choose for yourself when you are an adult and you make the decision that you want to be a Christian. Now, that isn't to say that we shouldn't baptize babies. I'm not arguing against infant baptism. But what I am saying is that when we baptize a baby, we ought to be making sure that parents who bring their babies for baptism are going to raise them as Christians, and not just give them a baptismal certificate and a candle to walk around with and say, look at me, I'm a Christian, now I'm going to go and beat you up. That's not what it's about. In other words, being a Christian is not something we are born into. Being a Christian is a vocation. It is a call. It is a ministry. And it is similar on a church level for all members of the congregations, it is similar for them as ordination is for a minister. A minister is ordained to be a minister to the congregation. But the congregation is called upon to be the baptized people who are living the mission of the church. I smile sometimes when I read in obituaries the death of a minister or a priest, and it says, or a nun, they joined the church when they were 15 or 21 or 25 when they were ordained, or when they joined a religious community. They joined the church. Baloney. You join the church when you're baptized, and the responsibility of the church is to so impress upon you what it means to be a baptized Christian that you live your life in a way that is different from those who are still motivated by the Spirit, but have a different vocation than those who are baptized to be disciples of Jesus. That's the distinction I'm trying to suggest to us today. That being baptized doesn't make you a better person. It doesn't make you more chosen by God than people who are not baptized. God's Spirit is in them as well. But being baptized is being baptized into the mission of Jesus, so that Jesus can continue his work by those not who are simply baptized, but who choose to live what it means to be baptized. And what does it mean to be baptized then? It means to live a lifestyle. It means to have values that are challenging and difficult sometimes to live. It means to be of service. It means to be compassionate. It means to be forgiving. It means to feed the hungry and clothe the naked. It means to heal the sick. It means to do what Jesus did and what he said to Philip in the gospel today. Philip, you blockhead, you want to see the Father? For God's sakes, I've been living the Father. I've been living the Father. I've been living the Father before you. How can you say, show us the Father? The Father isn't an old man with a blazer and a red tie. The old man is energy, life, love, forgiveness. I've been living this, Philip. How can you say, Philip, show me the Father? To see me is to see the Father. And then Jesus goes on to say that he is going to the Father. In other words, he is no longer physically going to be present, but they're going to send the Spirit into those who choose to be disciples, to be baptized, who choose to take on the mission of Jesus. And so a question that you and I have to ask ourselves today is, we say we are Christians, but can we say to people that we encounter, to see us is to see God? To experience us is to experience God. Can we say that honestly? Because that's what the vocation is. The vocation that sets the Christian apart from other people is that here is the community that has chosen to be faithful to the continuation of Jesus, and Jesus' mission was to make God present. How do we do it? Well, each in our own way. How do we do it as a church? Well, there are challenges, obviously. But one thing about the United Church, as we celebrate the 100th anniversary, is that we look back and we see a couple of things that stand out. Women have been ordained. Gay people are allowed in. Gay people have been ordained. The United Church stands as a sign of what God is like. God's people is inclusive. God's people doesn't discriminate. God's people is doing what Jesus did. making God present. So we need to reflect upon that. What I'm suggesting to us is that our vocation as Christians is not simply to be and not simply to do, but rather to be what we say we are, to take on that understanding of ourselves and to incorporate that Christianity into the fiber and fabric of our humanity. Let me give you some examples. When you were growing up in your family, you were a child of the family. And you lived your life as a child. You lived your life relating to presumably mom and dad. You took direction from them. You knew where your place was at the table. You knew how to expect things from them. You identified as a child. You could name yourself as a child. I am a daughter. I am a son. That's who I am. I can't say I'm only that when I'm in the house. That's who I am also when I'm on the street. So who I am has a definition, and I am responsible for living that definition. If a child wants to be a parent, then that child is usurping the parent's role. One's sexuality is also what one is called upon to live. And, to suggest to somebody that because you happen to be feminine, you are less God's child, or you are less important in this family, is to deny what God has fashioned. And that's when the feminist revolution came out, and people started standing up, and bra burning happened and whatnot. It was to say, this is who I am, and I have a place here. These boots are made for walking, and I'm going to do my walking. Same to people of color. Following in the leadership of people like Martin Luther King. Standing up and saying, this is who I am. I cannot be other than what I am. I have to be faithful to my truth. And you have to learn to accept me as I am. I began by suggesting to us that all people are children of God. All people have been infused with God's Spirit. But the vocation of the Christian is not simply to say, that's true for everybody, and it's true for me along with them, but to say, I have a special role. My vocation is to be the presence of God. Now, other traditions, other churches, other faith denominations may be saying something similar. That's for them to deal with and to live. But what I'm saying is that we who dare to call ourselves Christians are called upon to identify our personality as Christians. Not simply to say, I'm a human being that has a baptismal certificate, but rather I am a human being who is a Christian, and to see me is to have seen the Father. That's a real challenge. And to put it in more modern language, to see me is to have seen the Mother. To see me is to have seen the diversity of God. You don't have to look for God somewhere else. All you have to do is experience me, experience you, if we choose to live our vocations. One of our problems, of course, is that we talk about church as a place to gather, a place to go to, rather than an experience to be. We go to church, but that's not what we're called to. We're called to be church. We come to worship God. That's the wrong thing. We're called to reveal God. Now, not to say that we don't open ourselves to the power of God, the energy of God, the love of God. We do it, though, not to say, God, how wonderful you are, but to say, this is what we are challenged to reveal, because we choose to be disciples of Jesus. Being a Christian is not just about doing nice things, though. It is about being the nice God who does those things. You know, you see movies, I'm sure, that, portray gangsters. And some of those gangsters can do nice things. Some of those gangsters can take some of the money that they have cajoled out of other people and donate it to causes. Launder the money, maybe, even by giving it to sick kids or something like that. Bad people can do good things. That's not our vocation. Our vocation is not to do good things. Our vocation is to be the goodness that we do. To be the image of God doing the things that Jesus did. So people who say to you, show me God, where is that God that you talk about? We should be able to say, to see me is to see that God. Well, that ain't easy, is it? And I'm not suggesting that it is. It's hard work to be a Christian. It's more than having a certificate. A few years ago, back in late 80s, I think 89 maybe, I was interviewed by the Sudbury Star, along with another young priest. And there were two separate interviews. I was interviewed and he was interviewed. And I don't know why they were doing it, but it was talking about what it means to be a priest, what it means to live as a priest, what it means to be a pastor, or whatever. I forget the whole context of it. But I remember there was a big page in the Sudbury Star with my picture and a picture of this other priest.
Wow.
So I did my interview, he did his interview. And both of them were rather good. It made some sense. But one thing that he said just struck me as being, oh, so terribly wrong. Just so terribly, terribly, terribly wrong. Because in his interview, he made a distinction. He made a distinction about being Father X and being X. So let's say his name was Jim. He said, I'm Father Jim, but I'm also Jim. And I said to myself, oh God, he got it all screwed up. That's wrong. You didn't become a priest to be a priest when you put a dress on and wander around the church. You became a priest to be a priest. That's your vocation. That's who you have become. You can't make that distinction and think that you can live it sanely. You can't one day be doing what I do as a priest and the next day go out and do what the hell I want as a non-priest. That doesn't work that way. It's the same way as being married. You can't say I'm married when I'm with my husband or with my wife, but they're not around. So what the heck? Somebody else comes along, I'll be married for a little while. It can't be two different realities. It's psychologically impossible. It drives people mad. It drives people to divorce courts. It drives people to give up the ministry altogether because I don't want to live as a priest anymore. I want to go and live as a non-priest. The point is, when you are ordained, that's who you are. And you have to live that however it unfolds in its mystery. Which is why when I left the Catholic Church, I continued to minister. Because that's who I am. If I didn't, I would dry up and wither and become useless for myself and for others. Yesterday I went out and did an ash burial in Chelmsford of a family who wanted part of a dead person's ashes buried in Chelmsford and part of a dead person's ashes buried down in Cambridge. And so they called the Catholic Church out in there. And we're told, no, we can't do that. We can't bury half a person here and half a person there. For God's sakes, it's not even a person, it's the ground up bones of their bodies. So I went, and I was the presence of God's love for that family. I could not do it, because that's who I am. Well, if that's true of someone ordained, it is true even more so of those of us who are baptized. We can't live schizophrenically and still be authentic. If we say we are Christian on Sunday morning, we need to be Christian on Monday morning. And if we say God is love, we need to be that love. And if we say God is forgiving, we need to be that forgiving. And if anyone says to us, show us God, we need to be able to say what Jesus said to Philip. You blockhead. I've been with you. I've been doing it. I've been showing you. I've been the verb. We need to be able to say that of ourselves to those who seek out God. So, Pentecost Day is being celebrated again. And what do we remember about Pentecost Day? Is that Jesus did what he promised Philip and the disciples he would do. I'm going to the Father. I'm becoming spirit. I'm becoming energy. I'm becoming non-physical. And godly, we are sending that same spirit into you. So take a good deep breath. Pentecost people, breathe in the energy of God. Breathe in the life of God that is already a part of who we are. But breathe it in to be it. Breathe it in not just to say, isn't it nice we got it? Breathe it in to actualize it so that God's work can be done. That's what Jesus was about. And that's what we are called to be about. Even if it means, like Jesus, we are called to give up our lives in order to reveal God's love. Big challenge. But that's what it means to be a Christian. Not a piece of paper, but a way of life. And that is what should set us apart from others who are still moved by the Spirit of God, but who haven't received, as we have received, the vocation from Jesus to do as he did and to be as he was. So if you would turn to page 205, down at the bottom of 205 is the Pentecost prayer, known there as number 206. It's on page 205, but it's 206 down at the bottom. And let's pray together. Do you all have it now? All got it? Let's pray. Your Spirit, God, works in our weakness until we are aflame with your love and power. Fill our hearts with your faithful and living tongue, that we may set the world ablaze. Through Jesus Christ, to whom with you and Spirit be honor and praise, now and forever. Amen. And while we have books in our hands, we'll sing hymn number 585.